My name is Alfred Munzer. I was born in the Nazi-occupied Netherlands and survived the Holocaust because a Dutch Indonesian family and their Indonesian Muslim nanny risked their lives to save a 9-month-old Jewish baby. My parents were born in Eastern Europe, my father in a small town called Kanchega, and my mother in a neighboring town called Rimanov. They immigrated to the Netherlands to escape anti Semitism and to explore opportunities in a country that had welcomed Jews for hundreds of years. My father was the first to arrive in the Netherlands and started a men's clothing business in the city of The Hague. My mother followed him a few years later, and they were married in November 1932, just before Adolf Hitler came to power in neighboring Germany. My father's business flourished, and my parents made many friends, many of them not Jewish. And in July 1936, they celebrated the birth of their first child, my sister Eva. She was followed in November 1938 by my sister Leah, another happy occasion, marred, unfortunately, by news of Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass when the full fury of anti Semitism was unleashed in Germany. But still, my parents felt safe in the Netherlands. All that changed May 14th, 1940, when Germany invaded the Netherlands and installed a Nazi government of occupation. In 1941, my mother realized she was pregnant again. Her obstetrician told her it would be immoral to bring another Jewish life into the world and urged her to have an abortion. But my mother ignored the doctor's advice, and so I was born 8 months later, November 23rd, 1941. 8 days later, family and friends gathered in our living room to observe the first milestone in the Jewish life, my bris or circumcision ceremony. Photographs were taken at that occasion, and they were very significant because these two photographs were to be kept by my mother on her body through her stay in 12 concentration camps. In August 1942, when I was 9 months old, my father, like many other Jewish men, received a summons to report for labor duty, which meant going to a concentration camp. The sign was the summons was a sign of imminent danger, which forced our family to go into hiding. My sisters were placed with two devout Catholic women who lived next door to us, and I was placed with a neighbor across the street, Annie Madna. My parents went into hiding in a psychiatric hospital, my father pretending to be a patient, and my mother a nurse. Annie Madnat had some bad run ins with the Nazi government and felt it would be safer for me to be with her sister, Urina Polak. But Urina had a neighbor who was a member of the Dutch Nazi Party, and that is why I finally ended up with Annie Madna's former husband, Tole Madna. Tole Madna was born in what was then a Dutch colony, the Netherlands East Indies, now called Indonesia. Tole became my papa. The three Madna children, my siblings, and Nima Saina, the Indonesian nanny who had cared for them, now became my mother. Nima could not read or write, but had a heart of gold and cared for me as if I were her own. I slept in Nima's bed, and she kept a knife under her pillow, vowing to kill any Nazi who might try to come and get me. Because I was in the house illegally, there were no food ration coupons for me, And for 3 long years, she and the Madna family shared their own meager rations with me. They made sure I never came close to a window for fear that some passers-by might see a very different looking child. There were times when the house was being searched and I was told to hide in a closet, but I thought it was just a game. And I remember playing with the Christmas decorations that were stored in the closet. There were also times when I was very, very hungry. But what I remember most of the 3 years with the Madna family was love and laughter. Sadly, my sisters met an entirely different fate. After a year with the two Catholic neighbors, they were placed in what was assumed to be a safer home. But there, the husband of the woman who had agreed to shelter my sisters denounced his wife and my sisters to the Nazis. His wife was sent to a concentration camp where she developed typhus but survived. My sisters, however, were taken to Auschwitz where they were killed February 11, 1944. They were 7 and 5 years old. My parents only succeeded in hiding at the psychiatric hospital for 3 months. On Christmas Day, 1942, they enjoyed a surprise visit with my sisters. But 1 week later, on New Year's Day, 1943, all the Jews who had been hiding in the hospital were arrested by the SS. My parents were deported, first to 2 camps in the Netherlands and then to Auschwitz. My father remained in Auschwitz for 6 months and then was taken to a succession of camps in Mauthausen, Gusen, Steyr, and finally to a camp high in the Austrian Alps, Ebensee. He witnessed liberation by the US Army, but was so debilitated that he died 2 months later, still in Ebensee, July 25th, 1945. Miraculously, my mother survived Auschwitz and a series of death marches that took her through 9 other camps. She was liberated in April 1945, and she and I were reunited in July 1945. It's the first clear memory that I have. I had been asleep when my foster sister Devi came to get me and carried me into the living room where the whole family had gathered in a circle. They passed me from lap to lap, but there was one lap I refused to sit in, one woman I kept pushing away. That woman was my mother. To me, she was a complete stranger. I already had a mother, and that was Mima Saina. My mother thought it best that Mima continue to care for me, but unexpectedly, Mima passed away 2 months later, and that was when I finally bonded with my mother, a bond that lasted until she died 56 years later at age 94. Sadly, the Holocaust did not spell an end to hate, bigotry, or mass murder. I asked Tole Madna why he risked his life and the lives of his family to save a Jewish baby. His answer was a simple one. What else was I to do? To him, standing up to hate and bigotry wasn't a choice, but a given. That's the lesson I want the world to learn. That even when surrounded by unbridled hate, hate that robbed me of my father and sisters, and hate that took the lives of 6 million Jews and millions of others, it is possible and incumbent on all of us to stand up and do what is right.